All right, so we will now analyze the amplification factor for different values of alpha, lambda and delta t. So, let me rewrite for you the amplification factor. Which we have called A. So, A is given as 1 minus alpha delta t times lambda h divided by 1 plus alpha delta t lambda h. So, we are looking at a case where lambda h is positive. So, the actual system is stable, and therefore, we would like that this amplification factor should be less than 1, which implies that A itself can lie between -1 and +1. So, we are only looking at the issue of stability. So, this would then imply 1 minus alpha delta t lambda h, 1 plus alpha delta t lambda h. This should lie between +1 and -1. So, first let us look at the right hand side inequality. So, right hand inequality. Lambda is positive, alpha is a positive number, delta t is positive. So, the denominator is always going to be larger than 1. In the same way, I can argue that 1 minus alpha is positive, delta t and lambda are also positive. So, the numerator is always going to be less than 1. So, numerator is less than 1, denominator is greater than 1. So, this is automatically satisfied. So, this always holds. So, we do not get any new information from the right hand side inequality. Let us look at the left hand inequality. And this gives us that minus of 1 plus alpha lambda t lambda h should be less than 1 minus alpha delta t lambda h. So, I can try to rearrange these quantities. So, I would so I shift this one to the other side and I bring the other quantities over here. So, I would get the following: minus alpha, and here I would get plus 1 minus alpha delta t lambda h. This is less than 2, and then I can rearrange this and write the following, that 1 plus alpha minus a half times delta t lambda h, this is greater than 0. So, I am going to call this as equation 4. Recall this we had called as equation number 3. So, I have just rewritten this last equation, I have just rearranged it, okay, and I have been able to write it in this manner. So, you can also look at it. All right. So, this must be satisfied for stability, and what we can notice from this equation is that for values of alpha equal to or greater than half. So, if alpha is exactly equal to half, then I get 1 here and the inequality holds. If I have an alpha greater than half, then again this inequality holds. So, inequality holds for all delta t if alpha is greater than or equal to half. But if I use a value of alpha which is smaller than half, for example, I could use a value of 0, then to satisfy this inequality, I have to now place a bound on delta t. Okay, so therefore, the inequality would hold for a limit on delta t. So that leads to what is called as conditional stability. So for alpha less than half, conditional stability. Which implies that my lambda h delta t should actually be less than 2 divided by 1 minus 2 alpha. So therefore, the bottom line is the following, that the generalized trapezoidal rule if I use alpha greater than equal to half, I am unconditionally stable. That means I can use any time step that I would like. For alpha less than half, I have conditional stability, that is a restriction on time step. What is the restriction? If I knew the eigenvalue of the system and I choose a certain value of alpha, then delta t has to be less than this factor, and of course I would have to account for the value, the eigenvalue. If I was choosing a multi-degree system, so here I have done an analysis for a single degree of freedom system. If I had a multi-degree freedom system, then for the analysis I would need all the eigenvalues and then possibly choose the most restrictive eigenvalue. Obviously that is an exercise of its own, and one would not like to do that just to choose a time step. So it is a good idea to use thumb rules, and I will show you what the possible thumb rules that people use can be written as. So I hope the intent is very clear. We are talking about the stability of a time integration scheme, and for certain parameters very specific to the generalized trapezoidal rule, there is no restriction on stability, and for certain range there is a restriction. It would be a good idea to look at the amplification factor for different values of alpha. So let me draw this for you, it will give you some appreciation. So I will quickly sketch what A looks like in terms of lambda h delta t. You can of course take that expression and draw it yourself. So I am going to draw these ranges between 0.5 plus 1 minus 0.5 minus 1.0. So just to make things easy, let me just draw these horizontal lines, and to give you a sense of this is 1, this is 2, 3, 4, 5. So I am just drawing a sketch. You can actually look at it in a book or draw the expression yourself. It is fairly simple. So if I look at alpha equal to 0, I get a line like this. So this is the line corresponding to alpha equal to 0. And in fact, if I draw the asymptotic value. So what is the value of A if I call it infinity, defined as A when lambda h delta t goes to infinity. So this I will write A infinity is minus infinity. So you can see it actually goes far away. So there is only a certain range in which alpha equal to 0 can be used. Okay, so that's what is meant by conditional stability. So I cannot go for an alpha delta t larger than 2. If I do that, then I become unstable. So maybe I should mark here these are unstable, and above this limit I have unstable. This really is the only stable operating regime. Okay, if I look at alpha equal to 1, then I would get a curve something like this. So this is alpha equal to 1, and A infinity would actually be 0. So if I take a very large time step, lambda h delta t goes to infinity, then I would barely get an amplification factor of 0. So this is because alpha is greater than half. So this method is always stable, and you would see that from this graph as well. The interesting is the values of alpha in between 0 and 1, and let me sketch some of them. So if you look at alpha equal to let us say 0.25, you would see something like this. So this would be alpha equal to 0.25, and actually A infinity tends to something like -3. So again, this is a conditionally stable method, and you can only use up to a certain value of lambda delta t. Beyond that, the method becomes unstable. And just to show you alpha equal to plus 0.5, I will just sketch that as well. It could be something like this. So this is alpha equal to 0.5, and A infinity tends to -1. Okay. So one can draw sketches of different values of alpha. Now the interesting part is the oscillation you get between positive and negative A. Okay. So I want to give you some pointers on that. So so notice that we get a negative amplification factor. So A becomes negative in some range of lambda h delta t. For example, I can look at alpha equal to 0. So if I choose alpha equal to 0, up to some value of lambda delta t, I have a positive A. Okay. So that means my solution would monotonically decrease. But then as I go to a larger value of lambda delta t, then my A becomes negative, and I would get oscillatory solution. So this can be very easily understood by looking at the amplification factor. Let me show you how to interpret it. So we have written that dn plus 1 is given as A times dn. Let me apply this equation by varying n. So d1 is A times d0, d2 is A times d1, and therefore I can write this as A square times d0. d3 you can see is A times d2, which is actually A cube times d0. So, in that sense I can write down that dn is going to be given as an times d0, right. So, if a is going to be less than 1 and a is actually negative, so it is a negative value, but then what I meant is that modulus of a is less than 1 and a is negative, then you would get a situation like what we have shown here. So, if you plot these values of d's, you would see the following. This is your time, this was your d0. So, you would get an amplification where you get a value like this, and then at the next time, so this is this time instant. At the next time instant you would get a positive value and it would just oscillate, but of course it would be stable, right, because your a modulus of a is less than 1, but actually a itself is less than 0. So, this is what we have shown here, that for certain values of lambda delta t you could get an oscillatory solution, and the best way is that you can filter it out. You can filter out the oscillations by reporting something like dn plus 1 by 2. So, you can take the average values and report them, and you can filter out these oscillations. Okay. Let us continue our discussion on conditional stability. So, let us write down the system again that we have analyzed. It looks something like d dot plus lambda h d equal to 0 with an initial condition that d0 is equal to d0. And what we found is that for the generalized trapezoidal method, depending on what is the value of alpha we use, we could sometimes get into problems of stability, and that is why we would have a restriction on delta t. So, the idea of conditional stability is that delta t is restricted for alpha less than half, okay, of course greater than 0. How do we do this in a real situation? So, let me just give you an example. So, consider an advection equation. So, I am going to consider a simple one dimensional advection equation where phi is a quantity, it depends on x and time, and A is a velocity field which is given to us. Okay. So, the equation that governs this advection equation is del phi del t plus A del phi del x, perhaps this is 0. And then it would require some boundary conditions and initial conditions. So, let me write them for you. So, a boundary condition could be something like phi at x equal to 0 and at all times is given as, let us say, phi x 0, and there is an initial condition that phi at all x and time equal to 0 is given as phi 0, of course, as a function of x. So, this could be a problem that we are solving. I want to relate this equation over here to something like this. Okay. So, we will very roughly see what could be a possible lambda h when we compare these two equations. Okay. And it is quite easy to see that if I want to write down this equation in this form, so I leave phi continuous in time, but I will discretize this. So, if I do that, then roughly speaking I would get phi dot plus, in terms of A, I would get a quantity like A by h, which is my element length, times phi, and this is equal to 0. So, this is the rough, very rough estimate of this equation from an order of magnitude analysis. And therefore, by comparing this equation with this one, I can perhaps say that lambda h is of the order of A by h. In fact, if you are more careful, you can write down this derivative del phi by del x in terms of 2h, because the spread is over two elements, and maybe then I can put a factor of 2 here. So, kindly recall what is the kind of restriction that we had on the time step. So, for the generalized trapezoidal method, we said that lambda h delta t is less than twice of 1 minus 2 alpha. This was the restriction on the time step. And if we have a multi-dimensional degree of freedom system, like the one which we have talked about, a multi-degree of freedom, so there is a continuous set of unknowns in x, then we must check for the most critical lambda h, okay, and that is not easy to do. But if we look at this equivalence here, that lambda h is almost varying something like A by 2h, then one could possibly think that maybe lambda h times delta t could give us some condition. Okay. So, there is a thumb rule So, this is proposed by Courant and also called the Courant condition. Which says the following, that for stability I must have my Courant number C delta t less than 1, where C delta t is defined as A delta t by 2h. So, what we are proposing is that let us calculate the advection speed, its ratio with delta t by h, and take a time step such that this number never exceeds 1. Okay. So, this in that sense is a thumb rule, but the motivation is very clear that if I think of this as my eigenvalue A by 2h, then really I am looking at a restriction on lambda h times delta t, and that is being said we should not exceed 1. So, the fallout is that larger is A, smaller is the allowed delta t. Okay. So, if my convection speed is larger, then I would get a restriction on the time step. In addition, larger or smaller is my h, the element length, that means the more refined is my mesh, again I get a restriction on delta t. So, I would get smaller is my allowed delta t. Physically what we are saying is that if I have, let us say, my information propagating in this direction at speed a, then A times delta t is the distance by which my information propagates. And in some sense what we are saying is that it should not propagate more than a cell or more than 2 cells. Okay. So, so what we are saying is that if we have a problem of stability, then the information cannot propagate to too many cells at the same time. You cannot jump one cell over the other. Okay. So, that's the Courant and condition for an advection. There is a similar condition for diffusion, and there the Courant number is defined as nu delta T by h square. So, again we would like C delta T to be less than 1 for choosing a time step depending on what is my coefficient of viscosity and what is my element length. So, these are only thumb rules, and what is being said is that when you are doing a calculation, you look at what is the smallest element size that you have, okay, and you look at what is the largest diffusion coefficient you have and base your delta T so that C delta T is less than 1. Likewise, you make a check for advection. So, choose the smallest element length that you have, the most restrictive, and perhaps what is the largest speed that you have. Of course, it might happen that the largest speed that you get is not at the smallest element. So, you have to choose locally what combination is most restrictive and make sure that your Courant number never exceeds 1. So, the thumb rule is neither the convection Courant number nor the diffusion Courant number should exceed 1 if you are choosing an algorithm which is conditionally stable. For the generalized trapezoidal scheme, if you use alpha greater than equal to half, then you are always stable. So, you do not have to worry about the size of the time step. That is all I wanted to say about the stability of the numerical algorithm. In the next session, we are going to discuss the consistency of the numerical algorithm, and we will also discuss how the stability and consistency put together would lead to convergence of that algorithm. Thank you very much.